I'm Ellen. I'm going to be doing this. And Terry Young, who's with BMES, would ordinarily be here to introduce me, but I told her I'd do it myself. But I forgot to ask her how to advance slides. So, people have asked me who I am, what I've done, so I'm just going to give you a quick one because we only have an hour and so time. Oh, I need a timekeeper. Would one of you in the front tell me when we're close to 4:45? Thank you. I am recently retired from 23 years with the Department of Defense. Before that, I spent 12 years in the private sector. I've been with the media. I've been with nonprofit. 30 years, I've been giving advice on careers and helping people write resumes. I wrote one of the first brochures for Epcot Center on careers in information technology, and I am that old. So for today, I'm going to go through a little bit of the job prospects. I think a lot of you already know where you stand, but I'm going to go through it real quick just so we have an equal meeting of minds. Then I'm going to talk about resumes. I'm going to talk about some job strategies, job search strategies. And if there's time left, we're going to talk a little bit about cover letters, about the rest of the things in your portfolio. Excuse me, I recently read that of the job applications that are accompanied by cover letters, 91% of those applications depended on a good cover letter. So we have to spend a lot of time on writing good cover letters now. So your BME job market, as you probably know, that right now, according to the Department of Labor Statistics and the National Science Foundation, that it doesn't look very good right now. It's very, very competitive. But there are statistics and economists who believe that it's not going to stay that way for you. That in the medical fields of all kinds, including biomedical engineers, that it's going to get better. There's a lot of graying population from the baby boom times that are now leaving. I just left. I'm part of the baby boomers. And so I have left space for somebody to follow behind me as a writer, policy writer in the Department of Defense. Also, in your field, there's going to be more and more veterans who are going to need your help. Thousands and thousands. I've already signed up to help veterans in Washington, D.C., and they have said, oh, we have 800 right now available for your help. I said, okay, we're going to come up with some cloning technology next. So government still has jobs, about 5,000 of them. I did a recent search for biomedical engineering in government, and I came up with more than 50 hits out of the 5,000 jobs. And that's not a bad percentage. I know that people think historically that government doesn't pay well, but they have consistent and constant increases. And it's not based on your gender or your color, so it's a good place to take a look anyway. Go green. There is a very, very strong current interest in anything environmental. So if you're working in any of your fields where you can find ways to do it better, cheaper, more green and more environmentally feasible, they're interested in talking to you. So with the great competition, we're going to go through some differentiators. We're going to go through, what some of the hiring organizations are looking for in your paperwork, and how do you customize for yourself. Okay, as you know, first impression is the most important. When the employing organizations get your resume, they're going to be receiving on average 1,000 resumes per position. So how do you distinguish yourself? That is an awful, awful percentage for you individually. So, and all the resume does is get you a foot in the door. It doesn't get you anything further. It doesn't get you a job. In the sense that when I've helped my clients, 95% of my clients get a foot in the door. They get to the interview stage. So I'm doing really well, but I'm not necessarily getting them their job. You have to get your job. Okay. Parts of your portfolio include the resume, CV. Resume and CVs are not synonymous. The resume is for the private sector. The resume is for the government. The resume is for journals and for other some of the nonprofits. CVs are for academia and research, and some of the government organizations, the National Science Foundation, NIH, Public Health Service, they are looking for CVs. But Veterans Administration, VA, Veterans Administration, Navy, Army, Air Force, they're the ones who are looking for biomedical engineers right now. They're the ones who are advertising for the 40 jobs. They don't want a CV, they want a resume. I'll talk about the difference later. What else should go into your portfolio of paperwork, correspondence, commendations? If you guys get letters of commendation, letters of reference, letters of a job well done, keep those. You should keep every single copy of every single artifact of anything that you've done well that somebody else has told you you've done well at. Sorry, I ended on preposition. Biographies. You should have a biography. You should have a short biography and a long biography. This is different from your resume. A biography is one of those things that you can put in the back of your papers and all in the front of your papers. They're very short or very long. A short bio you should also have memorized so that when you introduce yourself to people as you network, you can pretty much say it in about 5 seconds. And a longer biography is for print. Transcripts and references, you know. Most of the time references in the government, they don't need you to tell them that references will be provided on request. They expect it. So you can leave that line off of your resume because if they do call you in, they will call your references. Then at that time, they'll ask you for them. Okay, the most important part of your resume is the top 3/4 of page 1. If you haven't gotten their attention by then, you've pretty much lost them because they're going to take 3 to 5 seconds on your resume. And this is after Monster.com or government or the private sector has already put it through a character reader. Optical character readers are now very, very popular. And your resume will be scanned for all the keywords in the job notice, in the job ad. Those words in the ads are going to be in their optical character reader. And if you don't get a hit, it's because you didn't put those words in. So emphasis on putting the keywords in that you see in the ads. But then it goes to a human being. And if the human being looks at it and says, I smell a rat. Oh, this person didn't really do this, but they did a job match and they put the words in. I can tell that you just put the words from the ad in, that you don't really have the background for it. If they can't see that in the top 3/4 of your page 1, they're going to pass it on. Paper is nice. Change the color of your paper from time to time. You can always use off-white, light blue, light gray. Don't do anything dark, but there's no reason why you can't make yours different from everybody just by feeling it. That's okay. Don't use Xerox if you can help it. Name size doesn't have to be 18-point type, 25-point type. If it's 14-point type in bold, 16-point type in underlined, that's enough because you need to put in what you can do after that. Obviously, that's the most important thing for them to remember, but it shouldn't take up so much space that it's taking up real estate for your to the exclusion of your accomplishments. White space is important. Number of pages is important. I do recommend that in the private sector you keep it to a minimum. 1 page for those of you who are just getting out. 2 pages if you've gone beyond your PhD and a little bit more and you're kind of in your 30s. 3 pages when you get older than that, but you really don't need that many pages except if you've got a CV, and a CV has no page limit, and government is 5 pages max. 1 side of a page for undergrads. If as a PhD you've done a lot of publishing, a lot of speaking, and you can really justify going to 2 pages, go ahead, but private sector does expect you to keep it down to a minimum. Did everybody hear? Do you want me to repeat their questions? Is there anybody out there? Can you hear me now? Okay. He wanted a clarification on size of pages. All right, 0 typos. How many of you have resumes already? How many of you think they're pretty good? That was a trick question. Okay. Some of the best resumes I've seen in terms of content still has typos. And they have stupid typos. That at the end of some sentences have periods and some of them don't. I mean, that's an easy one to fix. Sometimes I saw one where, you had the city and no comma between the city and state. It's easy to fix. If this is your native language, you shouldn't be able to get away with that. They're small. You shouldn't cause anybody to look away. That wasn't for me, right? Okay. So I always tell people that I have a lot of people say, oh, I have a lot of friends have looked at mine, it's fine. Friends will never criticize you like I will. So take your resume and give it to somebody who doesn't like you, because they will look for every error in your resume. Okay, so find your enemy and pay the enemy to look at it. Okay, there are several different types of resumes. I recommend the traditional chronological. That is the one that government prefers. It's the one that most private sector people prefer. It is most that the press and the associations prefer. Exception is if you're going to private sector and you want to be part of their business development group. If you want to be part of their business development, marketing, and sales, then it's different. Then they're going to want to go to functional skills. What do you know how to do that you can sell? Not so much what have you already done. Okay, most important thing is for you guys to get to know yourself better. I mentioned to somebody here earlier, I did the counseling sessions, and I said, keep a diary of everything you do. This diary is going to be where you are able to write down your accomplishments, the numbers, the quantities, because as we go, you'll see I'm going to need you to be able to express in your resume quantities, numbers. If you worked with a group, how many were there in the group? If you worked on a grant, how much was the grant? If you taught, how many people did you teach? How many of them went on to get their degrees based on your working with them? I need numbers. I need all kinds of numbers. And the best way for you to remember those things is if you keep a diary of all these things. Numbers can be numbers of states, numbers of cities, the number of time, the amount of time it took you to do something. Did you do it sooner than anybody else? Did you beat others in terms of time? Okay, so almost everything you do can be translated into numbers. So here are the different parts of a classic resume. It's not a CV. CV, you'd start with your education. But in a regular private sector one, and almost all of the government, except for the ones I told you earlier, this is pretty much the order in which you'd want stuff. And here are all the different areas that you can populate. You can populate awards and recognition. That can be a separate area. And I know a lot of you have won a lot of contests and competitions. You should track those. Keep track of those in your diary. Those are valuable. They mean more money in the private sector. Memberships. If you don't belong to anything now, join. BMES is a good start. IEEE, ACM. If you're a member of a minority group, join your minority group. I've joined the Asian American Government Executives Network, and I ran with them for 15 years. It has been the best thing I ever did. Armed Forces Communications Electronics Association, anything that you can think of, join them. Even join your running groups. You don't know, there might be a doctor working in running in your running group. Training and education, certifications, clearances. Anybody working in a classified environment? Oh, cool. So you know how important that is. That's another ka-ching. That's more money. So that's not a bad thing if you can say that. Languages. Don't list a language unless you're fluent or at least conversational in it. If you did high school French and Spanish and haven't used it since, it's probably a dead language for you. Other professional skills, I know that a lot of your resumes can include those. Extracurricular community service, this is important in government. It's called the whole person quotient. DISA, Defense Information Systems Agency, does classify you on your whole person. What is your quality of life outside of work? Do you donate blood? Do you work with the children? Do you volunteer with a church? Those kind of things are important to them. Put that in your diary. You may not include it in every application, but it should be in there. References we talked about already. Okay. Objective statements. Some of you have already heard, I don't like object. Yeah.
Sorry, to go back to your last.
I don't know how. No, you're absolutely right. What I recommend is you not make each of the heading names that big. They can still just be 12-point type, like everybody, all the other material you have. To distinguish sections, use a little white space, or leave it at that 12-point type, or bold it and put it in the middle. Or if you want to flush left it, put a little line under it. There are little techniques without making it so big that it's taking up too much space, because that's a good point. You do need the space, especially if you're at one page. You need the space. And you might not need them all, and you might be able to combine a few. Memberships and certifications can go together. I mean, just kind of depends on what you have. Any more questions? Yes. I would. Did somebody say no? Yeah. Yes. The answer is no. 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 I would have a list of resumes as as another page, a separate page, not as part of your, not as part of your resume, and not as part of your automatically as part of your application. Only if it says, enclose or attach a page of three references. And when you do put in references, you get your list of references. Pick the 3 highest ranking people you know. Go for the doctors, the head of the hospital. Go for the head of the lab. Go for Bill Gates if you can. If you want to go work for, if you have him, if you worked in the Bill Gates Foundation, go for Bill Gates. Howard Hughes, he's dead, so don't go with him. But go high. Go high. If they'll say nice things. I mean, if you go high and they're not going to say nice things, you can go on, move on to somebody else. Okay. So, education first or work first? If it's a CV, it's education first. If it's private sector, it's work first, except for new grads. New grads, education still is first. And education is first for new grads up until about 4 or 5 years after you finish and are working already. When you're in the workplace, after about 3 or 4 years, it flips. And then work goes first. Let's see. Education words. Highlights. Summary. So I don't like objective statements. I have not read a single objective statement in the 30 years I've been working on resumes that has been good. So it goes one of 2 ways. It's either too vague and too nonspecific, or so specific that you won't get another job in case you might be interested in it, but you've already pigeonholed yourself into another area. I mean, out of contention for another area. So I would avoid objective statements if you can. Instead, use the highlights and summary. Highlights and summary can be a nice bulleted summary of all the main things you've done. 7 bullets tops, okay? And those would be, hi, come on in. Some of those bullets would be something like you completed, a research project that had very, very high visibility. Another one would be that you just had something patented. A lot of syllables. You've just gotten a fellowship at Harvard, or a fellowship at Yale, or a fellowship with NSF. Those are good for you to put down as a top 7 bullets of your life, okay? And I think those are more effective than an objective statement, because they're not vague, and they're factual. And people will know off the bat exactly what are they getting. Somebody who's done, who's completed things. Well, up there it's sort of like a summary of the things you've done. So you can still put it below if you're going to expand on it some more. Some people, I tell them if they have a clearance, that would be bullet 7. Or if you've had a clearance in the past, you can say clearance held, whatever, TS or S. And then you don't have to repeat that. And a certification doesn't have to be repeated if it's up there. But if an award, maybe not. But if you wanted to talk about some, a publication that was really, really good, and you just want to say it in summary up there, and then say later on the below, ran a team to do this, and how many people were in the test case and things like that. So were you getting numbers and stuff in detail? I would talk it about again because then it's not a waste. It's giving more information. Yeah. CV, no, they're not looking for highlights in the CVs as much. Yeah, but government will take it. Government will accept it. Okay, so a job list. This is where you talk about, what job did you have, who did you do it for, when were they, and then a little description of what you did. And then there should be some specific accomplishments in little bullets afterwards. There's a debate, not a debate, but there's a difference between where you worked and the title you had. If you have a very important title that's more important than where you worked, you would put that first. If you were the head of a research project for a very, very small school that hasn't, is not in the public eye yet, I'd put down that I'm the lead of a project. That sounds better than the school itself. If you were a small person, an intern at Stanford, I'd put Stanford first. Okay, so there's no set rule, but what looks best? Yale looks best, or project lead looks best. Okay, but once you use one format, you have to use them for all the other ones underneath. So if you do title first and then company second, or title first and university second, then the next time you have to do it as well the same way, and the next item the same. So keep up a consistency there. Job description. If you're a researcher, you don't have to go into detail about how you do the research, because it's pretty much going to be the same in most cases. So that's one of the cases where you might be wasting some real estate on the piece of paper by repeating how you do research if it's pretty much the same thing. Only time I'd explain how I did research is if it were an unusual type of research or extremely large. If you had a huge cohort, or if you did something very, very different in terms of an approach, then I might take some time to do it. But the example is, if you're a teacher, don't then say, I instructed students on how to learn how to do this, because as a teacher, that's what you do anyway. So then you would use the real estate instead to talk about something different or special that you did. Innovative teaching methods, a new curriculum, research in learning absorption as funded by a grant from NSF. Okay, so then it's different. It's not just teaching. So let's see, job description. Okay, so the next part, the hard part, and I think it's hard for everyone, is to figure out how to talk about what you've done in completed increments with quantities describing the effort, so that the employer will know some sense of importance, some sense of size, some sense of value. So that's why I'm saying write these things down and try to give quantity to it. How many people were involved? How much money was involved? How many people on the team? How many people in the test cohort? How many? Whatever, there are numbers that you can translate this into. There's even time, like did it take less time than you expected? Or were you told that you had to hurry up and do this within 1 semester or 2 semesters, and you had no idea how you're going to do it because this is obviously a 3-year effort, and you still finished on time? That's bragging rights. And in the private sector, it's rush to market. So the private sector is looking to see if you can do stuff fast, if you can streamline processes, if you can leapfrog bureaucracies. They are looking for those capabilities. Any questions? Okay. So in your education and training, it is okay to list some of your classes. Not all your classes, but some of your classes could be very, very interesting, could be relevant. Relevant coursework, put that down. Related coursework, put it down. Special coursework, put it down. If you had a special project, a master's thesis, whatever, in your earlier life, those are okay to put in there. I think they show value. I think they show that you completed something. And then give some results, some impacts. As a result of this project, my team was given first place in some of the competition. As a result of this project, another university invited us to give a paper to them on it, or another hospital. Or, we're going forward with a patent on it, or the technology transfer organization's looking at it, or another university's looking at it. Those are results. Those are impacts that are valuable to government and private sector and schools. Because now schools are starting to look for more money. Okay, and the rest of does anybody have any questions on the checklist? Am I doing okay? Do I still have you? You're all tired, right? Oh. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. If it's particularly interesting. I know that there are now more and more universities offering entrepreneurial sides of bioengineering or engineering, and if you want to be, looked at by companies, then, and you've taken that course, I would say relevant coursework and list that one. Okay. If you want to go into ethics and you've taken some law classes, stick those in. It could be, or just relevant, or just interesting. You never know if that might sell to somebody. You never know it's going to appeal to somebody. I used to list that I played golf because I knew there were a lot of golfers out there, but that was not smart. Yes. Special skills, yeah, special skills, I think, are very special. I mean, are very peculiar in your area because you all have special skills. I can't pronounce half of the things you guys are skilled at. So it's kind of weird to put in, to have that section. But if you're applying to a company that has keywords like that in their ad or in their company or in their web page or anywhere, and you think it'd be useful for you to put them in because you have a match with that, I might extract those and put them in just to be sure that the word, the character reader picks them up. Okay, so it's a little bit of a tactical thing. But I wouldn't put Word, any of the Microsoft Word suite things anymore. I know people laugh, but they do. They still put in that they know Microsoft Word, and I think that's a waste of real estate. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't put Adobe Acrobat. I wouldn't put in Excel. But anything more higher order than that, I might include some of the IT. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, yeah. If you're an undergrad, I'd go to high school. if you're a grad, I would only go to high school if there's something interesting in there, okay, really useful, especially if, it's going to be useful because you're thinking of kind of maybe adjusting your transition to something else, like if you want to go into business and you happen to have done some fundraising in high school, I'd go ahead and do that, okay? But once in graduate school, high school should pretty much start to fade in your resume. Okay? Yeah.
You mentioned a lot about quantifying accomplishments using numbers, but most of our work involves a lot of numbers, things like fundraising, how many people you manage, how long it takes you. So what is the right number to put in? Do we put in time? Do we put in people? Do we put in dollar values?
What looks best? What looks best? I'm serious. I'm not just being flip. If your team is a team of 3, but you were working under a $5 million grant, I wouldn't worry about the 3. I'd put the $5 million in there. You see? So it's you manipulating what numbers should be going in there to make you look good.
So in that sense, we just want one number if it's a different project, or multiple numbers for one kind of project?
I would say as much quantity for every project as possible, so long as they make you look good. So, if this was a multi-university effort, and you were managing the whole thing, I'd say there are 5 major universities in the Southeast. I mean, it sounds good. It sounds big. There's big geography, that's big numbers, big universities. That's 3 big things. Yeah. Anything? Yeah. Which test scores? The end of year test scores? Oh. You can put them in. I know that a lot of people, even the CVs, they want numbers like that. They want the academic numbers. Government, sometimes they'll ask for it, and sometimes they won't. If you're you're really, really high up there, like perfect numbers, I might put them in. But if you're less than perfect by a little, even a little bit, and if that's not going to make you competitive, I might leave it out. Your GPAs nowadays, in this environment, my guess is that the standardized testing numbers are really high in this group. I'm just guessing. So if that's the case, maybe you have to have. If they're both 800s, I might put that down. Yeah. A GPA, I don't necessarily, as a rule, say one way or the other. If it's really, really good, government has a DOD. In fact, I was part of this project. That there are times where we can make an automatic, non-competitive hire of scientists who have 3.5 and above. So you kind of have to figure out what's going to look best for you. If you don't have that, and maybe maybe you don't need to. Right. Yeah. Well, a little bit. They might. If you went to a really okay, so here's a reality, which I talked to college advisors as well, and they agree with me that it doesn't matter where you go. Okay, so if it's an Ivy League, you don't have to put it in because you went to an Ivy League. But if you went to a C school, you'd want to put in your GPA. If you're in a B school, then it's a toss-up, and you have to figure out what's going to look better, right? But I talked to counselors in the universities. They all agree with me on that one. So, did I see another hand, or was somebody waving? Okay. Okay. I'm going to move on if this is okay. Okay, so here's one I did. This is, totally fictional, but I thought I'd just go through some of the small things. And even though they seem sophomoric, they seem kind of basic, fundamentals like, Ellen, why are you, I know that. Well, I see these on resumes, so I'm going to drag you through it, and I'm sorry. So, one is, this is too big. Do not have a strange email address. wildandwoolly@gmail.com does not work. I don't care if you're the President of the United States. It doesn't work. And I have had people give me, and they say, what's wrong with tweetypie.com? I'm sorry. I don't want it. You don't have to have your Social Security number anymore. It's PII protected. All caps is a really dangerous thing. Be careful. Do not use them unless you absolutely feel like you have to use it. It is shouting at people. And Microsoft does not point out when you have a typo. And it doesn't point out when you have a grammatical error. So if you absolutely feel like you have to do this, lowercase the whole thing, let Microsoft Word show you where you've got typos, fix them, and then bring them back up again. But I don't recommend you do that. Here's a summary of experience. One thing, there's what do you call it? Guidelines in the Office of Personnel Management. That's the HR organization for government, for federal government. They say, do not say anything vague. And their example of vague is for when people say, I'm an excellent people person. I'm a good communicator. I work well with teams. That, in their minds, is vague. Okay, so you have to be very, very specific about the things you talk about, and you can't really rate yourself. Don't say that I'm strong, I'm good, I'm excellent, because you're doing yourself. You are your own suspect. So it's better to be factual. So I have here, dedicated professional with superb capabilities in managing people. The whole sentence is crap. Bad. High success rate in institutionalizing process improvement. Maybe, that's okay. Forced deployment, great team builder and communicator. The whole sentence is bad. Excellent in working with others to get ideas across. Still, vague, vague, vague. None of those three sentences are useful, even according to the government, federal government. Expert with reach-back skills. Now, reach-back is a term that's very, very common in DoD. If you go outside of Department of Defense, nobody's ever heard of it in terms of what they mean. Now, in your field, if you're only applying to jobs in your field, your guys are fine. You can use all of the thrombosis things and the cytostatic and the and those things that you want, you can, no problem. But if you go outside of your field, then start thinking and looking more carefully at how many deoxyribonucleic things are in there. Okay, always and never are no good. They're always no good. Always and never are always no good, because you can't do always and you can't do never. Technical know-how, no colloquialisms if you can avoid them. Certified public accountant in Washington, D.C., New York, Maryland, Hawaii, Pennsylvania, Florida. I would say in that summary, just say certified public accountant in whatever key city it is that you're applying for the job. You're applying for a job in Washington, D.C. I would say certified public accountant in Washington, D.C. and 6 other states. One sentence, done, finished. Okay, so going to the job. In some cases, the government asks for your salary requirements. And that's hard for you to say at this point. So I need you to go to the government salary table on Google. And look at where you come on that, where you think you fall in terms of money. And that's in a government application where you can kind of suggest that's where you'd like to be. Okay? And we can talk about that more if you're interested in offline. But it's a little bit complicated. Okay, so let's see. I've got to point down to a couple of acronyms. One acronym is MBIFSTG. And it means something, but only to the person who wrote it. So please, with your acronyms, do spell them out as best you can if they're obscure. If they're acronyms in your field, which, you know, is going to be understood and recognized by most of the people reviewing it, then certainly at your option, leave them in without spelling them out. But one of you, I hope you don't mind my using you as an example, there was a fairly long acronym for the outfit that reviews the use of animals in experiments. And I was told that once you spell it out, it's way too long, it's going to take up too much space. So just say, instead of putting the acronym down, just say the committee that governs the use of animals in laboratories. It's a little long, but it's clearer. And you don't have to explain it anymore because you've explained it. Okay. This is one of the things reason why you have to proofread and give it to somebody who doesn't like you to proofread it again. This word polices is supposed to be the word policies. And I see this a lot where people are typing form instead of from. It merits a rereading. Did you mean to say polices versus policies? So more and more and more, and I think this thing is on your disk so you don't have to live through all this. How am I doing in terms of time? Okay. So here's the good one. This is where I took Andrew Jackson's resume, and I did it in a way that I think kind of looks nice. Took out the acronyms. Took out all of the capitals. I made the summary of experience more factual. I said 23 years of experience in managing people and organizations. Proven success in institutionalizing process improvement, in-depth knowledge in pairing systems engineering with human behavior. Okay, so those are more factual. And he didn't rate himself. He didn't say he was really good at it. And the clearance is in there, member of the bar, Washington, D.C., and 4 other states. And then I have in there an example of his professional assignments, U.S. And in this case, he's a management analyst. He's not the President of the United States yet, but he worked with the U.S. Department of War, which is a very, very prestigious place to work. So I mentioned it first. And then specific accomplishments I have in numbers. Led the effort to institutionalize systematic process improvements throughout the agency by training 5 executives and 20 trainers in the leading-edge methodologies for change. In addition, introduced the concept of learning behavioral sciences to help change the cultures of the organization. Very, factual, specific, kind of answers a bit of a so what, and it's not vague. Okay? And more examples in there. Awards and recognitions, Department of War Bronze Star, Outstanding Performance 2007 to present. Education and training, I put in just continuing education. He took a lot of classes, so I just summarized them all. Continuing education and process improvement and training and supervision and time management. So I didn't want to spend the time on naming them all. Yeah. The appropriate point of view for, I'm sorry? Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. You want to avoid I. You are writing it, so it is first person. So in the current one, you use it present tense, first person present tense, and then the past ones, you use first person past tense. But avoid using the I as much as you can, but don't mangle the sentence if you have to put an I in. You don't want passive voice, you want active voice, and sometimes it means you have to say I. And I'd rather use the I than change it to passive tense. Passive voice, sorry. Okay, conversant in French, extracurricular activity, blood donor, 3-gallon club, a president of Homeowners Association, fundraiser for Boy Scouts of America, karate, black belt, golf, and Southern Italian cuisine. Those are fun things. You can put them in. An architect friend of mine put down that his hobby was eating. And I said, are you kidding? We're not going to send this to VA. He said, yeah, we are. And I said, okay. So I said, can we put in cooking and eating? He said, yes, we put in cooking and eating. And he got the job. So sense of humor, people understand. He's got the emotional quotient in there. He got the job. He's a very happy man. Here's another example of a resume that just kind of looks nice. I just kind of put it together. We're not going to go through it all, but I wanted you to see that it can work. It looks clean, even though there's a lot of gray matter on there, and a different type font, whatever. This one is closer to the type that's going to be recognized best by the optical character reader in the USA jobs. So this one's better than the other one. All right, so now I'm going to go through a couple of the sectors just to give you a little idea of what to expect as you're applying to the different sectors. Yeah?
I just have one question about the traits, physical traits. Why put that on? Because I'm using email on my resume or not on mine. Why put physical traits on it over close traits?
A physical, I'm sorry, physical what?
Physical traits.
Physical address. Well, it's a convention. It's an old convention. I think that it's there to show that you have some stability, and it's there that they would get especially if you're going for something with a clearance. National Science Foundation, National Academy of Sciences, they're going to want to know. A lot of the pharmaceuticals are going to want, to clear you for work there, and a physical address kind of indicates to them that you're stable. If you can call it your permanent address. A lot of the students have two addresses, a permanent address and a school address. You can put both of those if you want, or just leave the school one out and just put permanent, whichever one you use most. I mean, a 10-point type, it doesn't take up that much space just to let them know that you are kind of stable. And I'm recognizing there's possibility that there are people who are in school without permanent addresses, and in that case, just don't have it and explain it when they call you in for the interview. Anything else? That was a tough one, but I'm glad you made me think about it. Okay. Oops. Yeah. Okay, so academic jobs, you kind of talked about a little already, and you already know it because this is your field. I mean, you know this better than I do, and more than I do. And as you know, I can't emphasize any more than you already know that the speeches and presentations and papers and posters are important, but memberships and affiliations are important too. So those of you who have not joined anything, please join. I mean, these are the things that are very, very important to differentiate you, number one, and number two, for you to get your networking done. Networking is like your most important way of getting a job now. I got this job to come here to talk to you through networking. So I can't say enough of you getting out there, meeting people, and continuing your relationships with people. It's not just a question once of saying hi. Keep the relationships going. If I just so happen to have given you my email, stay in touch. Okay? You don't have to write me all the time. Just say, this is where I am now, and just want to say hi. And one day, if I think of something, I say, oh, maybe you're going to be good. You're going to be interested in knowing that this is available. I would say that the vast majority of people get their jobs through people they know. Vast majority. Even in the academic field. Even in government. Okay, so there are a lot of ads in the New York Times has a lot of professional notices of openings for professionals. So if you have a New York Times Sunday, I think it's a Sunday one, in your school, or you get it, take a look there. And don't discount headhunters. A lot of headhunters do not charge you, they'll charge the other people. Industry. This is really hard. Hi, Ed. Sure. Thanks, Ed. He's my connection. He is how come I got this gig. Okay. But there is a connection. It is a connection. There is a link, and thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. So industry is going to want to know what's different about you, what's better about you, what's important about you, what is it about you that I should want to hire you. Do you have any business skills? Do you have any business training? Do you have any business experience? Business can include marketing, sales, advertising, public relations, business development, any of those things. Industry jobs, a lot of them are obtained through networking. I think almost all of my jobs have been through networking. It's the next person. The only one that wasn't through networking was my first job. The first job I got off the newspaper. All the 13 jobs I've had since then were because I knew somebody. Okay, so keyword review, we talked about it. The private sector more and more is doing keyword searches, and so is Monster. Monster is doing keyword searches for them. Monster is building bigger and stronger search engines. And in fact, I think they're about to reveal one any day now. Okay, so when you think about applying to private sector jobs, they're also putting in personality tests now because it's a employer's market. So can you pass a personality test? Can you pass a security test? And can you pass a psychology test? Okay, then the other thing about private sector is because there is so much information about companies on the open market, you should be able to go to Google and get to know them really, really well because these are knowing the company and you're having a dialogue with them when you get called in for an interview is going to indicate to them that you know about them and you care about them, and that's going to be your differentiator. Okay? Same with government. Go in there being able to talk about them. The most successful interviews are interviews in which the interviewer is doing most of the talking. Oh, I thought you were leaving. I'm so glad you stayed. Okay, so, other than pharmaceuticals, okay, so I talked a little bit about going green, and I can't, did I talk about green? Yes, I did. That the environmental aspects of what you're doing, if you can express it and if you can integrate it, is going to be important to the private sector. Government jobs. This is the most interesting because this is the sector with the least amount of surprises when you want to get a job there. They tell you everything that they want about you in there. Each of the job opportunity announcements are very, very long, but they'll tell you we are looking for people with these skills, these qualifications, this experience, this capability, blah, blah, blah. They tell you everything. So if you have a match and you can put those words pretty much into your resume and put your name at the top, you'll get called in for an interview. So it's very, very important to look at the job opportunity announcements that you see and apply for them if there's a match. UR 858, your GS 0858 is your job number. All biomedical engineers are classified as 858. So you go into usajobs.com or gov, usajobs.com or usajobs.gov is the site where all of the openings are listed. And in the search, keyword search, you put in 0858 and we'll pop up all the biomedical engineer jobs. Engineers are 850. If you put in biomedical engineer into the keyword search, it'll give you all the biomedical work. Every time biomedical engineering occurs in their write-ups, and the write-ups are this long, but they may not be looking for biomedical engineers as workers. It's just in the write-up. So that's why if you're looking for jobs specifically, search under 858 and 850. Okay? I'm caught. Oh, okay. So keyword review, I talked no surprises. Okay. Starting salary, as I mentioned earlier, is kind of low in the beginning. I think that a GS7 is 35, 40. But because they have pretty much a guaranteed, consistent, and continuous promotion system, that you will get you will get raises regularly if you're performing adequately. So it's not a bad deal. I was there 23 years and I did okay. I just, as long as I didn't mess up, I was going to get promoted almost every year. Right now, agencies are asking for more money to hire scientists. So you are at the beginning of a very, very good time in government. So do take a look. NSF, NAS, NIM, National Institute of Public Health Service. Public Health Service is an interesting option. You're going to be in uniform for a short amount of time, but they are hiring. And I think it's a good career to go into. Veterans Administration, Air Force, I mentioned. Oh, why am I guessing? It's up here. HHS, Food and Drug Administration. I just read that HHS has got a special program for prosthetics and other devices. So that means they've got some money they're going to spend on that. So go to the HHS website if you're in prosthetics. Here are just some ideas for other employers. There are nonprofits and associations. BMES is one of them. Then there's a bunch of others. How about think tanks? Have you thought about them? Have you thought about Congress? Have you thought about going to any of the committees, the special scientific committees? The Library of Congress has openings for people who don't necessarily want to be in research, but they do want to do staff work in areas of specialization. Same with General Accounting Office, Government Accountability Office. Same with Office of Science and Technology Policy. You'd be in policy then. But there are openings there, and that's very interesting work. You'd be writing laws governing your area. Other publications and journals, I know you guys have professional journals and publications. Other areas that are maybe a little bit different, but you should consider them as well as special commissions. They only last a couple years, but they do hire, they have money, and they are looking for specialization. So if you find a special commission on your area, you should take a look at it. World Health Organization, the foundations I mentioned earlier, the labs, the naval labs, they're great. Am I losing people because you're hungry or you're coming up? Good. Yay! Okay, how am I doing? Quarter of, okay. Can I spend some time on cover letters? Because we're kind of done with resumes. And we have questions on resumes. I got a little detailed, but I wanted to make sure that I covered everything. Any questions on them? Okay, cover letters okay? Can I do some on that? Okay. Cover letters should have 3 parts. The first part should state right up front, why are you writing to them? I'm interested in a position with your company. I would like to be considered a candidate for so-and-so position with your company. I am following up on a job advertisement in the blah, 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 Times that you put in on January 12th, 2012. First sentence should say, why are you writing them? Any of those introductories is fine, and it's okay to say I for the first sentence. Then the next section should follow, and then the next sentence would be, I have attached a resume. Please take a look at it, things like that. Okay, so that's paragraph 1. Paragraph 2 should be about them, that you are interested in them because you know they do blah, 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 blah. And you're particularly interested in the work that they're doing in blah, blah, blah. Okay, so demonstrate to them that you went to the trouble of looking at them, looking into them, and you understand and know the kind of work that they're doing. It's about them. Like the interview. In the interview, it's about them. It's not about you. And then, paragraph 3 is finally about you. That in light of the work they're doing, you will see from my resume that I am specializing in that field. Oh, lucky you. Okay? And then you recently wrote a paper on this, or you recently did some research on this, or you'd like to spend some more time in this because you're speaking to some advisors, blah, 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 and so this is a field of study that you're particularly interested in. So then you can finally go to you, but the whole time you're talking about you, you're talking about in context of them. Does that make sense? Are you there? Okay. So that's part of knowing the know the hiring organization, and that you understand what they're looking for. And can you articulate what they're looking for? That's your skill. You're translating their job opening advertisement into your understanding what it is. And this is where they're testing to know if you can write. So this has to be flawless, and it has to be well written, and it has to be good English. Because you don't have to show you can write in your resume. So the only test they have of whether you can write is in your cover letter. Okay? Make sense? Okay. Oh, I'm done. Here's a little extra. No typos, no edit. Oh, I've already gone through it. Okay, forget it. Okay, talked about I. You already asked a question about I. I've already done that. Enemies review. I've already done that. No name on every paginate. Need to paginate every page of any of those. Even if you've got 2 sides, you still should have page 1 on one side and page 2 on the other side. Still put the page numbers in. Bye. And if you can go into the margins and put your name real small in each of the pages, that's really good. Sometimes in government especially, they will split your resume up. And they say, here, you read page 1, I'll read 2, because they're 5 pages. Okay, here's some power words. I was looking at a resume today. It was really, really good because you started each different statement with a different power verb. And when you're entering a paper, your resume into a optical character reader, a scanner of some kind that's reading your words, you're wasting a word every time you repeat it. Because it's already been caught once. So go find another word so you can get another hit. Okay, so try not to repeat things. A friend of mine had a resume where she was a specialist in finance security, personnel security, computer security, facilities security. I said, you wasted 4 securities. Say you're an expert in security in the areas of personnel, finance, IT, facilities. Okay, so there's always a way to reword it so you're not wasting words. And every time you have an opportunity to put a synonym in, do it. All of these words are on the internet. If you put in, I think, power words in there, whole lists of words come up. And I think that's it. I think that's the end. Oh, no, there's more. Okay, so there's thank you letters. CV I talked about, bio I've talked about, thank you letters. Thank you letters are very, very important. Do follow up. The private sector, even though they're inundated with paper, thank you letters are always appreciated. If you have a chance to do that, please do so. And then you have the others. So here's another thought about government, and then I'm going to stop because I'm done. Which is that in the private sector, a lot of times they tell you to send your resume in to an unknown, unnamed address. And you don't know who you're sending it to. In the government, they're required to give you a point of contact for contacting them. That's why I love applying to the government, because there's no guesswork. And this person is somebody you can call and say, I just sent you my resume, I just applied for so-and-so job. And is there anything else you need me to do? Follow up, build a relationship with the HR person so that when it comes time to be reviewed, the person will know you, they'll recognize your voice, they'll recognize your name and whatever. If you don't get selected, you call them back and say, hey, how come I didn't get selected? Can you give me some breakdown? And they will give you a critique for free about, what happened to your application. So why not? Okay? Any questions? If not, we get out early. Yeah.
I've heard that actually writing a written letter, thank you letter, carries more weight with some people. Do you find that true in most cases?
I recommend it. And people say, oh, Ellen, you're so old. But, a lot of HR people are women. Did I say that? The tactic of sending a thank you letter in hard copy. Yeah. And I think it's a good tactic. I mean, it costs 45 cents. Very little. For a thank you note, it doesn't have to. It has to be sent within a week. That's the protocol. Okay. Yeah. Handwritten cover. Nah. Not anymore. Because of legibility. Thank you note doesn't have as much information in it. Okay, for those of you who are staying for resume advice, we'd like you to stay here because it's going to be done here. And then we have a bunch of great people who volunteered to review resumes. They're coming in, I hope. And I was told they're going to mark the tables so that we'll know which ones are level 1 and level 2. Does everybody know what the level 1s and level 2s are? Yeah, level 1s are less than 2 years of work, and level 2s are more than 2 years of work.